Hello and welcome to the video lecture series brought to you by St. Andrews Institute of Technology and Management. My name is Ravinder. I am an assistant professor with ETC department, and the subject we are discussing is object technologies and programming with Java. And today we are going to see a different topic that is arrays. You must be familiar with it. The arrays is just a collection of similar elements, and we're going to see the application of arrays in Java, how to declare and initialize an array element in Java, and how to use it, how to let's say populate the elements of array, and few other things. Okay, so let's begin with. Let me get to a slide. Okay, so now this is how an array looks like. Okay, so this is your array. Arrays is just a collection of similar elements, and as you can guess from here that 5.6, 4.5, 3.3, 13.2, 4.0 and all of these elements are actually your float, or you can say your double elements. Okay, I will stick with your float element. Okay, now why do we use arrays? Now we use arrays because instead of storing the similar kind of data points in separate variables, and then if we want to access those variables or those data points, we have to switch on from a variable to next variable to next variable every time. That is not very efficient, and that is not even, it's going to be very almost lesser efficient if those all data points are actually connected with each other. So if all of those are connected with each other and you know the relation to switch between first to second, and in that case it is even lesser, let's say it is not very optimized way to access all those variables by just assigning those data points to separate variables and then just calling each and every variable every time we want to switch from one data point to another data point. So it would be beneficial for us and highly optimized if we have a single point of reference for all those data points, and we can switch on from one data point to another data point just by changing one of the properties of your reference. Okay, so those single reference methods or single reference variables for the collection of similar data points is actually called arrays. Okay, so here you can see that we have an array of that has been named as mylist. Okay, mylist is an array of type float. Yes, you have to mention the type of the array that you want to initialize in Java, because Java is going to determine that what kind of data you are going to store in all the elements of the arrays. Now array is not could be a single element. Okay, it could be a vacant array that is with no elements at all, and could be there is no limitation on to the length of the let's say length of the array that you want to initialize or declare with at the beginning. Okay, so it is beneficial for you to determine beforehand that what would be the length of the array. Now as I've told you, array is just a group of data that is very similar in nature. First of all, the array, there could not be an array, at least in Java, which consists of elements of different types. Okay, so there cannot be an array where few of the elements are of type int, few of the elements of type float, few of the elements of type double or boolean, or etc, etc. Okay, so all the elements in a particular array must be of same type. As you can see here, all these elements are actually of same type. These are all of type float. Okay, now the name of this array has been initialized as mylist, and what this particular variable name is going to do, it is going to reference us to the very first element of the array. Now this is very first element of the array, and if you want to traverse from the first element to the last element, all you have to do is go through the indexes of these memory locations. Okay, so you can say that my list and the index of first element of the array is actually 0. And if you want to traverse from first element to next element, you don't have to store this particular element in a different variable. All you have to do is you have to call the name of the variable and mark its index as the next one, that is 1, and then just increment the index by 1. You will be traversing from 4.5 to 3.3, and then incrementing index by 1, you will be traversing from 3.3 to 13.2, and that is it. So the single variable, that is my list, is actually helping you, or actually helps you to traverse from one particular element to the another particular element in that particular array. So all you have to take care is you have to find out that at what index level you want to be, and at that particular index of the array my list you will find your element. Okay, so these 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 are actually called indexes of the arrays. Okay, so for this particular array, as you can say, the index start from 0 and end at 9. So you can say that the array which is of type float is of length 10, because we have 10 memory locations assigned for it. Not just 10 memory location, by one memory location I would say let's suppose 4 bytes or 8 bytes of data is actually assigned for a float variable in Java. In that case, those 8 bytes I will call them as one single memory location. Okay, so I'll term it as one single memory location. So the 10 contiguous memory locations stored by or assigned by the compiler for our array is actually the length of the array. So you can store 10 same data points, same type of data points in this array. In this case it is float. So 10 float type of data points could be stored in the array. It is no restriction that that those data points are similar or not. They could be similar, they could be dissimilar. Okay, so there is no restriction on that. Now to traverse from one data point to another data point, all you have to do is you have to take care of the index. So this particular memory location is actually a separate variable with the name my list with index 0, and this one is my list with index 1, and next one is my list with index 2, and that is how you will proceed from one element to another element. Okay, you have to take care of the indexing. Now to be very cautious while using indexing is that, or to take a particular point in your mind while traversing through an element using indexes, is that indexes always start with 0. That is why the first element, the index of the first element, that is 5.6, is not 1, is actually 0. Okay, so for an array of length 10 like this, you can see on your screens, the index will start from 0 and end at 9. So the last element has an index equal to length of the array minus 1. Keep that thing in mind. This is a very common mistake made by the beginners trying to study your coding language. Okay, so the indexes will always start from 0 and end at the length of the array minus 1th index. So in this case, the length is of the array that is called my list is actually 10, and the index of the last one is actually the length of the array, that is 10 minus 1, that is equal to 9. So that is why the last element of the array my list is actually being pointed out by the index 9, not 10. Okay, so this is how the arrays are being defined in Java. Now we are going to see the syntax by which we can define or declare and initialize in some cases in Java. Okay, so this is how you're going to do this. Okay, this is just a normal let's say towards the right hand, the left hand side of the assignment operator. It's just a normal declaration of an variable of any of the type, let's say float, double, it could be of characters or anything. All you have to do is you have to add an additional scare brackets after either the type or you can do this either by after the name of the variable. So these square brackets could be anywhere, not anywhere, after either after the type or either after the let's say the name of the array. Okay, so these square brackets could be in could be after the variable name, that is num. Okay, so this is your left hand side declaration of the array. This square bracket actually signifies that the variable name which we have declared here, that is num, is not actually a single variable. It is actually a variable or the reference name for an array of type integer. Okay, now let's go towards the right hand side of the assignment operator. You will going to initialize this particular array with the keyword new, and then the type, which must be same as you have declared to the left hand side, and inside the square brackets you have to mention the length of the array. You have to mention the length of the array. So in Java you have to mention the length of the array that you are going to use in advance. You cannot proceed without it. Okay, you cannot proceed without it. So that is it with the expression. Let us see an example to how to do this. So what I am going to do is I am going to initialize an array. Let's take same example that we have already seen. So it's going to be int and num, and I will show you that it is perfectly legal either to place your square brackets after the type of the variable or after the name of the variable. Both of these are same, one and the same thing. And then after the assignment operator you have to initialize new, and then the type same int, and then the square brackets, and inside that you have to put that length of the array. So that is it. After this statement signifies that we have initialized an array that is called num, which will have the data or points of type integer, and the array num is of length 10. That is 10 contiguous memory locations are assigned by your compiler for this array called num. Okay, now how to populate these empty memory locations. Now at this point these contiguous memory locations are either populated with garbage value or with let's say garbage value at this point, not let's not speculate any other thing. So these memory locations are at this point completely populated by the garbage values, but we now want our data points to be inside that. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to store the values using a for loop. Let me remind you, for loop can help you traverse through the array. How? We are going to just see that. Let's say we have already seen for loop in the last lecture, and I am going to run this for loop for exactly 10 times, because at each pass of the for loop my one memory location or a memory location of your array is going to be populated with some value. Okay, is going to be populated with some value. So I must be less than 10, and every time, and we are inside the for loop. Okay, so now what I am going to do here is I am going to write that num is equal to, let's say, I multiplied by, let's say, I, and that is it. Now what I have done here is I have called, this is how you can initialize your array memory locations with some values. So I'm going to write here as I, and that is it. So what we have done here is every time when the for loop starts, the value of I is equal to 0. Now num of I is actually signifies the first memory location of the array num at the 0th index, because in the first pass the value of I is equal to 0. So it's practically going to be num 0. So it is signifying at the first memory location assigned by the compiler for your array called num. And the value that is I multiplied by I is going to be assigned to this particular memory location. Okay, so in the first pass, the value 0 multiplied by 0 will be assigned to first memory location, that is the value at the index 0 of the array num. At the second pass, the value of I will become 1, and in that case num1 will have 1 multiplied by 1, and then num2 will have 2 multiplied by 2, and so on. So this is how you can populate your array with values using the for loop. Now let us also try to print out all these values and try to see if we are correct in assigning the values to the array or not. Okay, so what I'm trying to do is I will again call a for loop to traverse through each and every element of the array num, and again int I will be equal to 0 and I will be less than 10 and I plus plus. This, let me again remind you that this particular I has scope only inside the for loop. So this particular I has scope inside this particular for loop, and this I has actually scope inside this particular for loop. So there is no discrepancy with the compiler, and there will no let's say contradictions about which I we are actually referencing to. We are actually referenced to. Okay, so don't get confused about that. So what I'm trying to, I will do system.out.println, and I'm going to write here num and I. Okay, so every time this particular for loop makes a pass, it is going to print the value that has been stored in the array num at the index I. Now for the first pass, the index is actually going to be 0, then 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, because at the when the value of I become 10, then this condition fails and we will be outside this loop. So we are never going to get to the num 10, which actually does not exist, because as I've told you that this particular array, as you can see in the declaration of the array, is actually of length 10, and the index starts from 0 to 9 only. Okay, let's try to run this particular, let me save it and try to run this particular example. Let's see if we have succeeded or not. And there it is. Okay, so these are all the 10 values that has been stored in the array called num. As you can see, when the value of I is 0, the value assigned is 0. When the value of I is 1, the value assigned is actually 1. When the I's value is 2, then 2 multiplied by 2 is 4, then 3 multiplied by 3 is 9, then 4 multiplied by 4 is 16. So the values has been assigned to the array called num, and then we have tried to print out. So this is how you can access each. This is actually how you can access a particular element of the array. Suppose you want to access a particular element, that is the 8th element of your array num. All you have to do is you have to write num7, because index start from 0, not from 1. So num7 will be your 8th element of your array. So this is how you can access that. Access any particular element of the array, not all the elements, but any particular array of the element. You just have to provide the index of that particular element inside the square brackets, and that is it. Okay, so this is how you can declare a particular array. Now there's one last thing that I want to show you is this. Actually, now we don't the array that you have just seen in the IDE is just a one-dimensional array. Okay, now we have multi-dimensional array, or Java has the capability to revive multiple or to handle multiple dimensional arrays. How can you do that? All you have to do is you have to initialize your array with double square brackets, and you have to provide the length of its rows and columns. Okay, I think you have understood what I'm trying to say here is. Now this is how it is going to be look like. For a 2D array, you will have rows and columns. So the first square bracket signifies at which row you are, and the second square bracket signifies at which column you are. Okay, we'll see one example of this in the next lecture, and I will show you a few of the very commonly used functions that are used in Java. That is the how to find out the length and how to initialize a particular 2D array or a 3D array in Java in the next lecture. Okay, so I'm going to end this lecture now, and tomorrow we are going to see the multi-dimensional arrays in Java. Okay, thank you.